I think we're starting the stream. Let's try not to cuss here at the beginning.
Why the fuck not?
Because it's Pixelogic stream.
Oh.
Well, that's Shane.
Yes, it is. Shane live right now?
No, that's from earlier. Hold on, let's restart. Okay.
Nightly.
Huh?
That's supposed to be you?
No.
Critique session? No.
Yeah. Did that? So you all can see me? That's weird. Why do I have Shane? I'm so confused. And I live? Hi, Bamal. So you can see me? Can someone see me? Anyone? Because I'm seeing Shane. I'm not seeing myself live. I have nothing but problems. All right. There we go. All right. Ta-da. I'm live. That's weird. Okay. Hello, hello, hello. All right. That's great. So I'm here. I don't know why. All I saw was Shane live and not myself. So there we go. Woohoo! All right, so we have 6 people who've brought their models in. So we will look at models. Righto? Awesome. So if anybody has any models that they want me to look at, you can see the address right over here. Oop, right over there. Wrong direction. The http zbru.sh/tsw. Yes, my lovely star, right? Okay. So let's hop right into this, okay? No, all that goes away. So is David Wyrick here? So, is there anyone here who has a piece in to be looked at? Let's start there. Oh man. My speaker tried to take off my foot. Everybody calm down over there. All right. Oh my God. Okay, so we'll start with David's piece since no one seems to be here. Well, the first thing I would say, David, is, I'm assuming it's hanging like this. Make sure that when you're designing your part that you're actually hanging with gravity. So if you think that it's going to lay out like this, but you're going to hang it from that hole, it's not going to hang that way. Remember that it's going to hang through the center of gravity. So it's probably going to hang something like that would be my guess. Okay, you did a pretty good job of keeping the points up and away from the body. Good call. But what you have here is very similar forms and shapes on the front part, like on the star, as well as on the background. So what we do is we lose this shape. So you can do it through texture or pattern, but these patterns are too similar to read very well. Because let us, do you have these in polygroups maybe? Nope. All right, let's polygroup this. Just so I can get rid of the star real quick. Yeah, we got a tab. All right. Meow. Meow. Meow, meow, meow. Okay. Control. Oop, got that point. No, Control W. So here, first of all, let's duplicate this. And I'm just going to show you very quickly what we're talking about here. So if we come in and I make this
Oh, you're back.
I'm back. Okay. That is very frustrating. Hold on, let me just do. Nope, dynamic subdivision is not turned on. When you lag like that, often it's dynamic subdivision. Here I'm going to use clay, backface masking, and I'm just going to fill this in a touch. Just so our pattern is not so similar. What are you laughing at?
You're moving over here. You're not. Yep, your model's moving.
So I have a question for you guys. Stream seems to keep freezing. Is Restream working? Can someone because I don't seem to be getting chat either. Go first, ever, never. Okay. Can someone respond in chat? Yeah, I don't know what's going on. It's gonna starting to make me a little aggravated. Look, I'm frozen again. It can't be this model, can it? There's something weird with that model. Are we freezing on this one? Gosh, we're still over there. Look at this. We're still on that model. I mean, we're... All right. Let me do this.
Now you're in this, but you're just
Yeah, we're... Okay, let me do this. I'm gonna restart the stream. I don't know why it's acting that way. I'll be right back. I don't know. I don't know why it's doing that. That's crazy. Okay. It says we're offline, doesn't it? We should be live. Okay, boom. We are back.
that's it, guy.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's only about 5 seconds right now. Okay. Jeez Louise, let's try this again. Sorry, guys. Does that seem to be working? All right. Frame. Okay, so you can see by just smoothing some of this down, and bringing this up, see how that stands off the back surface a lot more. So what you want to make sure you're doing when you have something that's a foreground and a background is make sure that either through texture or pattern, hello Arturo, that you are trying to delineate more clearly. I would argue that you know, you can even do the same here a touch, because right now everything seems to be, I mean, just smoothing that out helps some. So I would say the main issue here is your freezing up again, aren't we? Grr, 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 grr. I do everything in ZBrush. If you give me half a second and let me finish this, I'll show you really quickly. I use ZModeler, do my base block ups in ZModeler, and then subdivide up and then start sculpting. And that way I have control over where my geometry is. And I can get, in ZModeler, I can get something that may be, you know, 300 polygons in the block up. And then that gives me almost a full extra subdivision level. Because having as many subdivision levels as I possibly can is the real trick to sort of really being able to control your sculpt throughout. Hello, Ian. Yeah, so I would say, honestly, that's the big thing on this one. The other thing, don't do points. I mean, you're just, all you're doing, someone is going to hook themselves on this and they're going to cry forever. And I mean, I make sharp things, but these are like literal hooks. I don't think you're going to be able to get away with that. And have any kind of real wearability. Hold on, let's do this. Brush. For all of those who don't know, see how you can go past this and you can't get that point to smooth down? If you come over here to minimum connected points under your brush palette, slide this to 1. And now you can shrink those points much easier. Come on, get up in there. Yeah, one sec. Let me reboot. I'm wondering if it's that model. It did not. We're frozen. No problem. We can get to it. That's okay. Oh, crappus. Saves. If my stream doesn't sort itself out, we're going to... Am I freezing? Is this just complete crappus? I can work on my machine all day and then I sit here and everything blows up. I don't get it.
Sure. You
Well, you've seen that I'm working.
sure.
Nope. Am I live? I mean, can you guys see me? Oh, for God's sakes. Okay. No. All right. I'm sorry, David. There's something weird about your model and it's killing me. But I think that's the number one problem. One, get rid of your hooks because those are body traps and you will hurt people. And then delineate the texture between the background and the foreground. And that's going to solve the problem with the star disappearing. So in a lot of ways, either you want the background smooth or plain and the foreground complex, or the foreground smooth and then the background more complex. So you're using texture to differentiate the two. That's good. The two things. All right. Sorry, David, I think your model is eating my ZBrush. All right, who do we have here? Stephen Lynch. All right, Stephen. All right. First things first. I mean, there are anatomy issues. I don't know if you're being stylized or if you're trying for realism, but you have some anatomy issues. One, the guy doesn't have a neck. His head's too small. But that's something that I can sit here and talk about your anatomy, but let's sort of discuss some of the things that are easier to work on right now. If you're going to do this, right, see how you have this crossing over, I would make this thicker, or these polygrouped. Yeah, they are here. Let's go to this. Oh, let's look at our, oh, you have a billion subtools. Okay. Let's go to this one. All right. First thing I want to see, like on parts like this, are for them to actually have thickness and for them to kind of sit on the surfaces they're supposed to. By even just a little bit, let's change that to 1. Even breaking this surface story a little really ruins the image. So make sure if it is on top, make sure that it is on top. Yeah, because see, you have plenty of edge thickness there. Get it up and out. Make sure that you are, oh, I've crashed. I'm like, why is my brush so melodramatic? So that's one thing. Make sure you have enough resolution. I would divide this again because your projection is a little steppy here, and that's just the lack of resolution. Your pants, these look like they're supposed to be stitched together. So you start it well here. You get like, let's just take this little part here. Boop. Turn that off. Let's just look at this guy. Oh, it's interesting. You have shells. Okay. So you started out with the right idea here, but you want to, if you want it to look like a scene, make sure that you're getting there. I would say do the low V and then come back in with pinch and pinch this seam in. And as you'll notice, what it does is it gives you two nice rolled edges, and it can kind of look like it's a little bit more together. And then if you're going to do stitching, here, I'll just use this. You know, then you can come back in and do your stitches. Make sure your stitches are not going along, fill it in, right? Don't see how this is going down and around. You don't want that. You want them to be level with the surface, right? So just do a little tap in the hole first and then do the stitch out and about. Right. And then the other thing, if you want them to look good, is might take cracks or something like that and come back in and just make sure that they're cracking into the surface, right? Because really what you're looking for is get in there. Come on. Jeez Louise. How many of those do I have? Let's make that a little deeper. And you can make a insert mesh brush to do this. But remember, what you're kind of trying to get across is things going in and out of holes, right? Come on. Oh, too big. Once again, you don't have a lot of resolution here to be trying to do tiny detail stuff. Smooth it and then smooth the inside and then cross over, smooth the inside, cross over, smooth the inside, cross over. And then what you have are stitches that are actually going over the seam and through some holes, right? Problem with this kind of stitch, if you're just using a straight stitch like this, is it can look like staples. The other thing you want to feasibly do if you're doing such a large stitching is give it a little tension, pulls, you know, just so you're showing that it has some action going on there, so it's not just stapler on some paper, right? But you can see how that is selling it much better than lines across here. Well, no. That's what we were talking about earlier, saying that there are anatomical issues. And yes, it takes a lot of practice for the anatomy. But these are easy things that you can add to your model to make them, you know, a little bit more on the path. If you start thinking about the solutions to what you're trying to resolve, right? This isn't a stitch. This is something that's soft that's going down and in, where this is crossing over the seam and, you know, getting there. Yeah, I don't necessarily want to get into the anatomy critique at this point. I mean, there's a lot of anatomy work that needs to be dealt with. And I mean, if you want, at some point, I'd be more than happy to do that with you, but it's going to take a long time because there are real anatomy issues here. So what I want you to think about out of this one is this. Think about what you're actually trying to do, right? Don't be quick. Don't stop and actually think about what you're doing. Because here, you know, like I said, you're trying to sell this as stitching, right? But that's not actually what stitching does. And, you know, this applies for anatomy, it applies for everything. And that is also, if this is actually supposed to be POR, make sure it's going the other direction here. It's not just because, right, your P goes in this direction. This is what it would look like on this side, right? As opposed to just using mirror. Little things like this will get you. So think, once again, kind of think about what you're trying to accomplish, and then think about what it actually looks like, and actually pick something up and look at it. Use reference. I mean, even if it's just your genes, you know, use reference and try to get to the actuality of what it is. There's a wonderful book called Drawing with the Left Side of Your Brain, which kind of shows you how to start to look at things. And that's a pretty good book to try to get you going on that. Yeah, so I think that is probably going to be, you know, your rope sitting okay. Once again, I think resolution's your issue. You know, this is all anatomy issues, and I don't really want to get into extreme anatomy right now. Like I said, I'd be more than willing to work with you with anatomy, but just, you know, and point you in the direction of some anatomical referencing. But I think for kind of this heroic stuff, the Bridgman books are sort of one of the best ways to start thinking about anatomy. I don't know if you guys have heard of Bridgman, but there's, I think it's called constructive anatomy. One sec. Constructive anatomy. Yeah, here. So these are cheap books. I mean, they're not very expensive. But I think that what Bridgman does kind of better than most people is this kind of breakdown of your anatomy in structure. And it gives you these big blockouts. And this allows you to start to break down your anatomy sort of structurally. And his, come on, show it to me here. He kind of goes through and shows you how the hinges and stuff work. But you can see, like, this is breaking down the muscles of the knee and leg. And I think this will help you start to understand anatomy in a little bit more of a structural sense. See here, he's talking about, you know, how the muscles block in and actually what they're doing. And he goes through with rotation and constriction. And I mean, I like the Bridgman books for sculpture. I think that he simplifies your heroic anatomy really well. And he shows you very clearly how these muscles overlap, but in simple block forms. And that allows you to come in and block out the parts. So I would suggest buying a couple Bridgman books. I think they're $8 or $9. I don't think they're super expensive. But I think for a simple start to anatomy, Bridgman works really well. And I think that'd be a good starting place for your anatomy stuff. All right. Yeah, I think the real key is to really wrap your head about what you're trying to accomplish, and then looking at it and making sure you're actually getting it. You know, try to replicate what you see. Start with reference and use reference material. I think that's going to help you a lot. All right. Yeah, Hogarth's good as well. I just think that Bridgman breaks down the muscle groups in this very interesting blocky way, and he's very much about dynamics. And yeah, I think if you don't know anything about anatomy, Bridgman's a pretty good start because it's pretty simple. The Hogarth's great, but Hogarth is much more realistic anatomy, where Bridgman is sort of this heroic scale and how he breaks down the anatomy. Here, let's go to Hogarth real quick. Let's just go to the images. You see what I mean? See how he's showing you this sort of soft, pillowy, sort of, he breaks stuff down. But if you look, Bridgman really is breaking it into more simple forms. And his constructive anatomy shows you sort of the angles of travel, like how the joints work. I think it's a more basic view of how the anatomy is constructed. Bridgman books are, if that makes sense. Is this the PDF? Can we actually look inside this? Yeah, here you go. Will you not let me scroll through it? Hold on. I want to see if I can get to where. Okay, so they're not going to let me show you. But he has quite a few books that. But like I said, I think that, as you can see, as he's showing this stuff, he's breaking it down. He's showing you how the muscles overlap. He's cutting cords. But you can see he's breaking it down into these basic blocky forms. See here? See how it's like square, square, half round, rectangle, rectangle. I think Bridgman breaks it out into those base forms a little clearer for people who don't know about anatomy. Because, once again, these are very good. And, but I think that if you don't know anything about anatomy, I think Bridgman is a really good start. But Hogarth's books are great as well, don't get me wrong. Yeah, exactly, it is. All right, so let us go here. All right, we sort of have a face going down here, I think. Yep. I like where you're going with it. When you're doing things that are, and this goes for everyone up to this point, intentionality is a very big deal. So, like, you're coming in and sort of representative of an ear maybe, and it's like this circle right here doesn't make any sense to me, right? What's that there for? So don't just decide you're going to throw shapes in. You have a plan here. I am creating an abstract anatomical image, right? So what does, I don't, you have a circle for the eye, I can almost buy this circle. I'm not really buying it, but kind of buying it, fine. This one's fine, but think about the scale of the detail and then why it's there, right? It can be a swirl. Okay, I want to turn it into a swirl. So I'm getting this swirl and anatomy. But, make sure that they're accenting each other, that they have a reason. Like, if you'll notice as you came in here, your details got a little bit smaller. You could, whoa. Why is that so? Oh, because that's form soft. I'm like, why is that like that? Okay, TW Clays, the intensity down. You can turn symmetry on, turn that down. Right. You can have similar but keep the elements sort of roughly the same scale, if that makes sense. Like, I know you want a cheek here, or the lip parse here, but, and then once again, I don't know why this is here, this circle. It's not doing anything for your form or shape, I would simplify this out, because these are kind of, come in and do your forms larger, right? Figure out what they're trying to be. Like, is this a beard? You know, you're sort of being abstractly representative, abstractly representational. So, you know, why did you put a swirl here? What are you trying to accomplish? What's going on? You know, this coming up. Like, this is clunky. I don't know why it's there. If you're going into the ear, you know, I guess it can be there, but this shape right here does nothing for me. So all you did is take swirl and kind of wiggle this around, as opposed to like actually thinking about why you're wiggling around. Oh yeah, no, there's nothing wrong with it by any means. I'm just saying you need to, intentionality is a big deal, especially in abstraction. Good abstraction is difficult because you're abstracting something. It's not just blah. So, you know, you kind of did this hair thing here. You know, try to get sort of your details in the similar vocabulary, not just like this little half round thing, you know. I think you need to, and I mean, I would say this is a good block out. I want you to go back, think about why things are where, like, you know, is this the hair? Why is this coming up in the other direction? Is this a horrible cowlick? I mean, this directionality right here makes no sense to me. I think that's really the issue there. Good morning. Yay, Tunisia. So I would say don't just rely on your twist tool. Come in and after you've twisted things up, decide where you're going. I think it has, you know, it has some good directionality. I think that, or some good things going. I think just popping those little circles in there aren't doing you any good. Think about it, kind of, you know, you can see all I did was put like a little lump in there. Now all of a sudden it has much more character as opposed to just these circles. Like, I don't understand why you're just punching these circles in. They're not making sense to me. Here it's okay because that's actually kind of part of what's going on there. But even then, you know, I would try to do something that is, you know, sort of trying to tell the story in all of your strokes, not just some random ones. Yeah, I don't like the circles. I think they're a cop-out. Right. So wrap your head around actually the image you're trying to convey. And like I said, you can get in there and start wiggling that around, twisting and turning and twisting and turning, but make sure that you come back in and retune it some, because, you know, it's great silhouette. It's going places that has some interest. I just think that you ran out of time, one or the other, and then just kind of hammered at it. Does that make sense? Right. Yeah, this right here makes no sense to me. I don't know where you're going with that. Does that help? Hope so. The other thing when it actually comes to producibility and wearability, you want to be careful about having these little thin step ends. If you're trying to do one, no one cares. If you're going to try to mold them, this step right here will become a huge problem for you. Also, in the grand scheme of things, I like to have the insides clean. So you can come in here and, you know, do something, but at least make it clean so it doesn't look like it's just a drop from the other side. You know, make it, once again, intentionality. Make it look like you've tried to do something back here. Your parts will look finished, and you're doing, just by doing and conceiving the inside of the ring, you're doing more than 90% of the other jewelers are doing, and it's a big bonus for you. And it also just makes the stuff look much more professional when you actually finish the parts. Yeah, all right. But no, it's interesting. I like it. I mean, it's going someplace. I just want to see you work on it and decide on what's going on. Like I said, I think you just use twist right here for no particular reason, and it looks like you use twist here for no particular reason. Unless you're trying to make this the ear. And if this is the ear, then don't have a replicating ear. So you have these two ear shapes, and nope. So once you get your base squiggly do in, make a decision and actually design it thereafter, if that makes any sense. Alrighty, what do we got next here? We have, all right. Well, okay. So here again, I want to see kind of a breakout of layers, because when you start getting more linear detail, you need to add layered definition or layer division. Otherwise, it all becomes sort of a squirrely mess. I mean, you kind of have like this little frog astronaut dude going on right here. It's kind of what he looks like to me, little frog astronaut. And I mean, you can pick your shapes. I'm just grabbing this as an example. Oh, this is Dynameshed or something, isn't it? That's okay. We'll pretend. Boop. So all I've done is raise that up and off the surface a touch. And you can see how that all of a sudden becomes a much more dynamic thing, right? From that to, come on, you get back. Oh, crap. From that here, let's do this. So just that little change from flat, cute. Come on. See how that compared to that. And just, you're dealing with, that's a little lip, but I think you can see what I'm saying here. By just pulling some of these things up and giving them just a little layer information, not just linear information. And I would do this in a couple places, right? Where things are changing depth, not just cut in, you're going to wind up with a much more dynamic object. Right? Now, I don't know, did you not finish it, or so you have sort of this form going on, sort of a helmet, I guess. I would like to see you come in and decide. Once again, we're going back to intentionality. So what we have is, or what it looks like we have here is a guy with a helmet on. So it looks like you've tried to define sort of helmet, which is detailed, and the flesh of the person that isn't really detailed, right? So this is the flesh. The nose, I don't know if it's part of the helmet or not. You have these here. So why do we have this kind of ornament on the flesh and nothing here, right? Like, you have this sort of triangle of unaltered meat. So decide if this is a helmet. If this is its head, then I might do something like that, so it looks, so you're not breaking it off, right? Does that make sense? So it looks like it's part of his head then. And in turn, I would do something that's carrying up and over. If it is a helmet, then I want to know what this chin stuff is, because there doesn't seem to be anything like, right? You have this edge here, the brow edge, all this is behind these edges. They seem plain. You have this right here. So does this get an edge where it is, once again, sort of an applique? And yet again here, I'd like to see just a little bit of step information as opposed to just cut in, because once again, this will read dramatically better with steps. Right? You have all this complexity. You have this big flat space over here. Maybe do a little bit of your little squirrely gig in here or something, right? Where you have some of this detail transferring over here. Hello, Ron. If that makes any sense at all. Yeah, I think consistency in your texture story is going to help you a lot. I mean, there's obviously no point in, I mean, anatomy is not the issue, because, I mean, anatomy is not real here, so you're deciding that. But think in stepped layers, right? Think in punching your detail through elevation as well as lines. You'll wind up with a much more kinetic figure. Does that make sense? Alrighty. What's we got here? Alright, let's turn paint off. Because why did the paint not turn off? Hello? Is this the same one I'm painted? I don't want to see your paint. Alright, I'm just going to fill the color. No, I guess I'm not. Okay, well, I don't have an answer for that one either. just so everyone knows, it's much easier to look at the actual model if there is no paint information. So why draw color, fill object? Nope. For some reason, somehow you got the paint baked in there. Well, that's annoying. Okay. Well, first, so use a little reference. Your profile's a little flat. Your jaw's a little, so the horse's brow kind of. Right, horses have a brow line and then comes down, and then your jaw's sort of down here. Right? So your anatomy is a little off, and that being a little off makes, you know, that. Right? So let's look at that profile compared to that profile. Now, of course, you can have, you know, the bulged nose, but that all does, you know, sit below the brow line on your horse. You know. The other thing I'm seeing here, oops, is that your muscles are kind of looking like ropes under like a burlap sack sort of thing. And you're here, let's go back to this one. The paint's driving me nuts. Right, see, I would once again go back to an anatomy book, but think about, you know, these don't, it shouldn't look like fabric. It should look like, you know, there is substructure under here, and there's a reason for that substructure, right? So, right, I mean, you have this, is that a muscle, right? And like I was saying earlier to the other person, is don't be scared to use reference. Did we freeze a little? Yeah. Right, because you have, once again, you sort of have this like pillow going on there. Well, this is a jawbone, right? It's actually connected. So make sure you're actually contemplating what's happening there, right? And this is where reference won't kill you. Right? So you got to think, right? Muscles have tension. They're not just like burlap sacks, right? And so that's actually a large kind of bulk muscle. There's one on either side of the neck. These kind of come down. I have to look at horse anatomy. Let's look at horse anatomy real quick. Right. You know, actually look at what's happening here. Right. So if you get a drawing like this and it sort of looks like this waviness, I think what they're trying to give you is depth this way. Muscles just don't flab out. There's myofascial tissue that keeps them formed. You know, they're not just flippy floppy things. Come on. Really? You're just going to... God, I hate Pinterest. Pinterest is the horror of any kind of visual research. Right. Let's actually look at a horse. But you see what I mean? There's tension in the muscle. It's not just, it'll never look like bags of popcorn in a meat here. Let's just look at the horse neck. Right? Here. This is a good example. See, even as they come down, right? These have tension. There's a lot of tension in these muscles, especially a horse's neck is a big thing, right? So make sure you're thinking about, okay, this is coming up here and under this, right? And then I think this goes under that actually, because you really see these two proud muscles on the back, and then this comes out, and then you sort of have these guys coming in, right? But like if the neck, if it's actually coming and inserting here, you don't have weirdness going around. That's actually what's happening. So what I want you to think about is these are solid masses traveling under and over one another, right? So get a good anatomy book or get a good anatomy image, right? See, it's not floppy. It never just looks, you know, especially horses. I mean, you know, it's very tight, strong anatomy. And so if we look at your horse here, right, see how this is sort of floppy. This is going out over the jaw. This is just coming around and flopping. So definitely find a good image of an angle of the horse that you're looking at, and don't be afraid to use reference. Reference is incredibly important. And you know, let's see. Right, even when you're getting lumping, you're not getting that kind of look of a bag and right, sort of loose. So use your visual referencing. I mean here, right? They're big planes. They're traveling over and under one another, right? Nowhere is it loose. So think about these as big planes that are, you know, once again, okay, where is it going? This one's under that one. We'll make it go under it, right? So that one's coming out like that. And I'm not saying this is horse anatomy. I'm more wanting you to look at the what's going on in the surfaces, right? And then once you get your surfaces filled, you can come back in and just fill in the meat a little, just cross hatch over it just a touch, and you're adding that tissue, and now it looks like things that are going over and under one another beneath some skin. So avoid just using, it looks like you just sort of used a standard tool. That would be my guess. And you just were like, okay, well, that's a muscle, and then that's a muscle, and then that's a muscle. That's not how muscles work. That's how balloons work, right? So go back, use your reference, and don't make balloons. Make planes that are crossing over and under one another. Does that make sense? All right. So what do we got here? We have Elvira, I think, huh? Is that Elvira? Looks like Elvira. All right, James, you're here, right? Am I here? Are we live again? It looks like I dumped my stream. Oh, no, we're back. Okay. Jeez. Okay. James. Let's go down to our chair as a total thing. You gave me a ZPR, not a ZTL, so I combine these a little. All right, before we get to her, let's deal with the chair. Auto group. All right, boom. We'll deal with the podium first. Same thing as with the pendant earlier. What you need to do is separate some of these things out so they are off the surface, right? I tend to use SK Twist. You can use anything. Turn symmetry on. No? We're not going to turn some. Oh, because it's not facing front. Okay, never mind. Never mind. Turn symmetry off. I'm just going to do 1/2 of this bat, and then we'll look at the other half in a second. Now, see, you just cut a line in here. I'm going to knock that back. Right? Now, look back here. All I've done is raise that bat off that surface. And you can see how by not cutting lines in, by... Hi, Bimvakar, how are you? Right? And so the same thing with these keystones. I would just come back in and pull these up and around and off the surface. And it's just going to give you a lot more definition. Well, that's okay. I'm just saying. Pulling the edges off the surface are going to give you quite a bit of dynamic change there. Your rocks are looking pretty good. If it's supposed to be like hand chiseled out. I'll tell you, one of the things that I use as rock texture, here, let's kind of pick the back side of your guy here, that I like quite a bit. I'm just going to trim front this off real quick just to give you an easy... Oh, you're dynameshing, aren't you? One of the tools that I like quite a bit for rock is crumple. I don't know what I just did there. The crumple brush, where is it? Of course, it's behind my text. Crumple. Kind of get it big. Kind of shift the focal shift out a little more. And as you rock it back and forth, you can, whoa, holy Hannah. You need more geometry for this. Hold on. You and your mesh. Here, let's do this. Append. Just give me a plane. Let's go to our plane. Let us frame our plane. There it is. Divide, divide, divide. Divide, divide. Alright. You can go in one direction than the other. That's interesting. It wants a little bit to grab on. Let's fascinating. Doesn't like a flat plane. Go back to crumple. All right. And now you can come back in. That sort of gives you some nice striations and some things to work with. And I tend to come back in and just define some edges, and you can really punch this into a nice striated surface. If you just rotate, let's go here, do one big pull, that gives you your striations going in one direction, and then sort of rotate. You can see you can get some pretty cool stuff, and then the rougher you shake it, it gives you pretty cool striations to come back, smooth things back in, and just use this as a structure to kind of punch and pull stone. But I like crumple for getting a base group of stone. All right, so let us go back to here. Let us talk about your little stand. All right, wings are there. Let's turn everyone back on. Nope. And once again, I think that, you know, just going in and drawing in these details, once again, you're going to get a lot more out of the part. You just come in, and I know you have no geometry here. Come on, what is going on? Right, instead of just drawing stuff in, you know, that took no time. And just look at the difference between that and that, right? No, that's the model up here. That's part of a different model. I mean, once again, I don't really want to get too deep into anatomy, because I think you know that you just took this, bent it around. I don't think you've worked on the figure that much. Right, you know, your anatomy's skewy at this point. I think you took a tube, posed it. So this is a pre-sculpt model as far as she goes, I think. But here, let's go into, let's hide her. Where is she? Is she actually on the chair? All right. So here again, I think that thinking about these dimensionally is important. Yeah, so, I mean, it's, I know. Yeah, it's really hard because it doesn't split hidden. It's tricky because this thing has like no geometry to play with, so. But here again, sort of what I was talking with the others before is really wrap your head around what's kind of going on with these things. And you know, you have these pillow forms. Make sure that, you know, they are dimensional. You got halfway there, and then you kind of over smoothed everything, and everything got very soft. But you can come back in with one of your line brushes. Large size at not much pressure. And that will, right? And then once again, I would come back in here with my twist small and just come up, you know, and just give these guys that little lift off the edge. Right, and you can see that from back here, that's going to give you a much more interesting form. It's going to read like pillows, you know, concentrate on stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to talk about the detail on stuff here, you know. I would like to see, obviously, sharper detail on all this stuff. But so much of that really has to do with, you know, the resolution of your model, the, you know, so it's hard to go, oh, well, you know, I'd really like to see, you know, definition in these teeth. But you don't really have the resolution to do definition in the teeth. So I think that, you know, you're definitely on the way here. I mean, it has a lot going on. I think even in your posing, I'd be a little bit more careful about using bone structure, because you bent this, like our elbow. I mean, let's look at this arm. You know, this is where, once again, maybe using one of the mannequins or something in ZBrush, but, you know, you didn't bend you bent the arm to the chair as opposed to paying attention to where the arm is. Yeah, I mean, I get the low poly count, but you, these are all Dynameshed, or is this an imported OBJ from something else? It looks, but I mean, look at where you bent the arm, right? Here, let's go to paint. Oops. Can't paint on it without filling. Fill object. All right. You know, this is what your skeleton looks like. You see something wrong here? Hey, Farden. Does that make sense? See, you didn't pay attention to the bone structure of the part. You just you bent it to the chair. So the thing is
That's better.
Am I back up? No. So, does this make sense to you though? Because what you did is you took the figure, you threw it in the chair, and then you just bent the arm to where the chair is, right? And what you need to do is you have to position her in the chair. Oh, that has no color in it, right? Come on, show part. Right, you just set her straight up in the chair, and then you started to bend her. So I would suggest maybe using mannequins, because, well, you can stretch those around. You need to be careful using mannequins. Or do a simple structure that has, here, hold on. I did this the other day. There was Where are you? Interesting. Astronauts. I think she isn't posing. That was the thing with. Oh, yeah. So you can see what I did here. When I was doing the dude on the motorcycle, oh, this is going to change the ZPR. That's okay. I think you have an idea here of what we're talking about, right? All right, so no. I would say if you can afford a Cintiq, buy it without a question. No questions asked. It is by far the best thing you can own as far as sculpting in ZBrush. It's like you're here, it's moving, it works, it's an incredible tool. .5" without shortcuts? Or I don't even know what that means. So you can see I just whipped up a figure here because the problem with this drawing is this arm is too short, right? So I knew that I would have to rock this back. And so I think that coming in and making just like a posing mannequin, hey Ash, how's it going, my dear, is really important. And get it all in, get everything in its own poly group, go to Gizmo. And it's really easy to, where's my Gizmo? There's my Gizmo. Hold down mask, tap, and now that is the unmasked thing. And now I'm going to pose the arm here and just drag it out. And now you can rotate it. And this keeps you from falling into the, I'm going to bend my arm to the chair, if that makes sense. So because I wanted this pose to be exact, I started with this, which was a rough, now you can see this isn't fully posed, but come in here, hold down that. Now I know that ball is, and I'll just come back in, unmask everything else. And now I know that I can move, well, all right, before you do this, real important, mask the ball, go to the center of the ball. Now unmask everything else. And now you rotate this and that way, so you knew her elbow was going to be sitting on the chair, right? So what you have to do is you have to figure, okay, well, boom, okay, now it's sitting on the chair. So that's the pose that you've got to start working with. Move the torso to the environment that you're working on, right? And you can see here I was trying to match the pose. So, you know, move it around. How I would manage doing the fingers is I would never go into Dynamesh. Here, let's hide this. We don't need to see that. That's why I stay in a polycube model. I don't Dynamesh unless I have to, unless there's a reason, and then I Z-remesh out of it. You know, we go to W, we go to here, we go to a cube. There is a lasso select. Over here, see mask lasso. So, you know, I'm going to take our block here. I'm going to make this a 1, 2, 1, W, drag that in. Drop gizmo, grab these 4 groovers. Oh, go to ZModeler. Now, I use extrude for this. I want everyone to understand using extrude is dangerous. Use Gmesh for the most part, but what this allows me to do is do my 3, and I can make my joints a little longer, make my joints a little shorter, and you notice they're not joining together. And so whenever I do hands, I tend to use extrude. Right, boom, and now that is not joining with that. As soon as I've done that, get out of extrude and go to QMesh. You can come move, give the, no, right? And now, move topological, grab these and move this out. Move this out, move that out, move that out, move that out. And now you have your base hand. Move that in. And really I keep it this rough. You can pose your hand here. You can also do a hand pose model like I did there. Just do a block, a ball, a joint, a ball, a joint, ball, a joint. But once you divide this, this now becomes something you can move, twist, and turn. For what woman model? You mean the one that, not this one, the one that was sitting in the chair? I don't know. I was critiquing that model. It wound up as a Dynamesh, it seemed. I'll almost always start all my figures something like this. I do have some, if I'm doing realistic figures, I do have some realistic models that I will start off with in the A and T poses. I have a few base models. This was from, there's a gentleman who's doing a kickstart on Anatomy for Sculptors, and I was looking at his model, which I didn't know. No, actually, box detail is super fast, honestly, if you get used to it. Because, but like for hand, I have posing models like this that I just bring in, right? And this is super fast. I just like Z-model it together once it's done, or remesh by union and then Z-remesh, and then I start sculpting. But I'm not really doing character work, okay? I mean, I'm doing jewelry work. And so I have to have a lot of high res capacity because I'm dealing with things that are too, I don't know if I can take much more of this. This is making me nuts. Did we, am I back up? My stream is literally crashing. Are we live? Yeah. No, maybe. All right, no, we're live. Okay. And I was looking at his breakout model, like how he was breaking out the structure of the face. But like this is one of my base models, right? That's A and T model. So I'll start from these quite often. If you're going to do anatomy, it's just easier to start from something that, you know, your anatomy you've spent time on. But this was actually fascinating. It's an interesting visualizing, because his theory is that the face doesn't really replicate the anatomy under it unless you're really good at the anatomy. And so he has this breakout system, and honestly, it worked pretty good. Hold on, let's see. That's that. Well, here, I can just smooth this one. And if you just Let's lower our res a touch here. Do your structuralism. And then just smooth it a touch. So you're getting rid of your illustration lines. Basically, you're putting all that under some fat, right? It gives you good structure. I like his structure. Right, and then you can see how he breaks it up. So I think if you're going to do figurative stuff, get one model built that's, or use the mannequins. The mannequins in ZBrush are actually really helpful. I think in a lot of ways that's all that most people need. All right, let's get back to astronauts. Ring. Oh, actually. One sec. Let me run downstairs. Do we have that camera on? No. Crap. Do you know how to put the thing on the wash? You have a wash unit, right?
Oh, yeah.
Will you put that print on the wash? I was going to show you the Form 2 wash unit. Hey, Fran. All right. So let me see if I can get this going. Wrong camera. Oh well. Damn it, Jim. We'll get it set up next time. All right. Yeah, so if you're going to do figurative stuff, okay, hold on. Boop, 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 boop. If you're doing figurative work, yes, box modeling can get old. But I would start almost all of my base models started out as a box model in one format or another. Because once again, I'm going to print, so where I have geometry is very important. And so like I don't worry about, like for gaming and all of that. I need even geometry. I don't want weird heavy spots and this and that. What are you doing, Tony? Did he put that on the... What? Did you put it in the wash? Thought you got confused on which one was the wash and which one's the cure. Yeah. Falling apart over here, man. Here, let me see if I can... But yeah, I think having a posing armature is going to help you a lot more. But really, I mean, all of my models start out as box models, and then you make posable things. I don't Dynamesh. I don't Dynamesh anything. I would remesh by union and then Z-remesh it. Now Dynameshing is going to union them. All right, see you later. Sorry, my stream keeps eating it tonight. I don't know what's going on. What is... I don't think I just have my base pose model here with the hands and everything, because I just whip this one together. But even, well, here, well, let's just whip one together. That is simple enough. I mean, if you're trying to pose the hand, right? Taper. Right, you have a slight taper to your palm. Let's go the other direction. There we go. Q. That. Ball. W. Yeah. Right, and then just grab rectangle, cylinder. Thank you, sir.
Yours is much tighter than mine. Like just getting the.
Oh, I usually just slide it in from the front, so
Oh, mine will just. I
Just drop it.
Yours I had to like actually.
yeah. Normally, I take it from the front.
Yeah.
I just push it in, and that just pops it open, and it just goes.
Yeah. I was just surprised how much. Sure.
That's funny, isn't it?
Making a menorah.
It's a menorah. Dreidel, 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 I made you out of clay. Auto group, so everybody's different. And you know, like I said, if you're just posing, I don't really spend too much time more than this, to be deadly honest. I don't really waste my time worrying too much about this stuff. So boom, flip. And so now go to the center of the ball, come back out, and now we're gonna mask all that crap off. Oops, got my guy there. I'd probably be a little more careful than I am being right now, because we have, just gonna get that out of the way because I don't want it there, but and I still got it. Isn't that crazy? All right. Let's get that. Actually, I want it that. I can move that in a little. All right. And then, you know, I'm gonna. Normally I spend the time to get enough airspace in these damn things so this doesn't happen here. Oh, symmetry's on. That's what's giving me so much damn grief. Like, what is going on here? There we go. So that's out of the way. So now, once again, come here, go to the center of the ball, that becomes your rotation joint, and then I just unmask what I'm trying to move, right? Come in here, rotate it around. Oh, didn't go to the center, right? And so I will just come in. Let's grab our ball. Grab the ball, go to the center of the ball, unmask your finger, straighten it out, pull it down, twist it out. And this way you're always going from the joints as well. Oops, go to the center of the finger. And then you just kind of rotate it in the direction you want. Right, and you can pose your hand really quickly this way. And I mean, obviously you need to make it to scale, but then honestly, all I do when I'm done is I come in, I remesh by union. Now, what do we have partial? Oh, this crap. Delete hidden. Come back in, remesh by union. I'll remesh by union. And then I will detect edges, Z remesher. And now I have a Z remesh tool that's in, and I'll polygroup my fingers as well so I can get rid of them. Divide up, and then I literally just come in and start sculpting. I mean, right. And if you're going to be doing a lot of figures, I would spend the time and actually make a nice posing model for yourself. But I don't do a lot of figurative stuff, and if I do, I just whip out a quick armature and then I just come in and start sculpting. Right. Because most of the time, the things I'm doing, if I'm doing a figure, if it's 5 millimeters tall or 8 millimeters tall, I'm lucky. So, you know, just, you know, for me, 99% of the time, that's going to give me enough anatomy, enough structure for me to come in and, you know, just sculpt. My anatomy in, if that makes any sense. Yeah, I have some problems with mannequins too about how it converts out, and you can move the mannequin things. That's why I tend to make my own. I'll dig. Hopefully for next week I'll dig up my posing mannequin and I'll show you. But you know, in all reality, that's right. You know. because normally my anatomy is like this big, so I'm not too stressed about it. I do have some anatomical models that, you know, I have good base models that I've spent a lot of time on. And if I'm worried about it, I'll use those base models for the most part. But once again, it's just really quickly getting things in because, once again, you know, I'm dealing with parts this big. Lifting and rotating the arms forward. Well, I think, you know, a lot of that comes down to your base model. I think this one's broken up. Nope. Where is... Is this it? No, that's not it. Sorry, I wasn't prepared for anatomy tonight, guys. I didn't, No, wrong model. I'm trying to find the one that has everything broken up. Quick saves. A lot of William Henry. Oh, look at this. I am just juggling. Monkey. Crucible. Inside joke. Next week. Sorry, I'll be more prepared next week. That's not what I was planning on dealing with today, obviously. So I'm trying to sort through my models. So no, that's ZPRs. Quick saves. Sort it quick saves. Monkeys. No. All right. No, that's too new. Anything in here? I got a bunch of weird crap in here. Okay, you're asking about. I think here. Let's just open this guy. So much of that, honestly, is having your. I think this guy has them. Having your subdivision levels. This is why, like I said, almost all of my models start out as box models. That's not it. All these are do I really not have one of these that I'm very underwhelmed with myself right now. Well, here. Okay, so I'll always break my model up right where it's poly grouped out. Let us do this. Oh, I know what we can do. Let us go over here. We are going to go to so much ZBrush. We are going to go to Remesh Plus, recreate subdivisions. Recreate subdivisions, make that up all the way. Remesh Plus. All right. Oh, escape. I want to retain polygroups. Okay. We're going to delete you. Okay. Back to it. Retain polygroup, recreate subdivision levels. Low res is fine. Max 4. Okay. Boop. Now this is going to, okay. This is going to subdivide this or remesh it and then reproject my subdivisions and give me my subdivisions. And this is important. This is why you should see this. This is worth it. Oh yeah. This is important. Boy, this has been a nightmare stream. I have like crashed 40 million times. Yeah. Oh. Am I live again? As you can see, ZBrush ate it. My stream ate it. All right, kind and gentle folk. I think I'm going to call it a night because I keep crashing and I'm not prepared for these questions. I don't have my models. It's just really frustrating, and I can't only imagine it's frustrating for you too. It's making me nuts. Sorry, that sucked. I will see you next week. Jesus, I'll see if I can figure out what the hell's going on. Oh my god. Okay. Have a good one, guys. For God's sake. That was absolutely painful. Agony.